They kicked me out of the house I helped pay for over a plate of pancakes. That's not an exaggeration. One morning, I served a kid breakfast at the diner because he looked hungry and scared, and by that evening, my family told me I was a disgrace. Feeding strays, they said, like I was doing it to feel important. But they didn't know who that kid was. And they never saw what came next. 4 black SUVs, military plates, and a flag folded into my hands. The woman they kicked out was the one the military saluted. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where this story lands. Every Tuesday at 5:30 IEM, I open the side door to Maureen's Diner in Halston, Indiana. Same elbow push. Same smell of overused coffee grounds, floor cleaner, and grilled onions. The blue apron I wear is older than some of our regulars. By 6:15, the regulars start rolling in. There's Jim, ex-forklift driver, lungs full of menthol. Brenda, retired bus driver, cries into her scrambled eggs, and the obituary page. Then there's me. Nobody really notices me, just the waitress refilling your cup before you ask. At 7:05 a.m. sharp, he'd show up. Same seat in the corner booth, jacket zipped up too high, even though the heat was on. He never ordered, just read. On the 4th day I saw him, I broke the pattern. I slid him a plate of pancakes and said the kitchen had extra. He didn't smile, didn't thank me, just picked up the fork like it was a test. That became our thing. Quiet gifts. I never rang them up, paid from my tips. I didn't have much, but I had enough to make sure one kid didn't feel invisible. Some days I brought oatmeal or toast with jelly packets. Other days just warm syrup and eggs. Always subtle. Always shrugged off as an accident. Most days I had just enough for gas and a sandwich from the corner store, but somehow feeding him felt necessary, like something I didn't need to explain. I watched him eat slow, like he was pacing himself. Like he'd learned not to eat too fast, even if he was starving. His hands were too small for the sleeves of his coat, and he turned each page of his book carefully, like he was afraid of ruining it. He reminded me of myself at that age, quiet, invisible, hoping someone might see me but too scared to ask. I never asked his name. I figured when he wanted to tell me, he would. That night I made the mistake of going to dinner at my mom's. Tuesday roast. Overcooked and overjudged. My older sister, Shannon, made her usual dig. Still feeding that stray behind the diner, she said, smirking. I said he was just a kid. That was enough to spark the fire. My mom said I was making the family look like bleeding hearts. Shannon laughed like it was all a joke. My brother-in-law muttered something about the diner attracting all types. My uncle chuckled into his beer. I didn't argue. I just folded my napkin and stared at my mashed potatoes until they blurred. They weren't mocking what I did. They were mocking who I am. After dinner, I did the dishes like always, scrubbing gravy off plates, while Shannon muttered behind me, "She always thinks feeding people makes her matter." The sponge paused in my hand. I didn't reply, but something inside me snapped clean in half, and it didn't heal overnight. It calcified. The next morning at the diner, I noticed Brinley, one of Shannon's old friends, seated at the counter. She wore rhinestone sunglasses inside and kept angling her phone toward the booth where the kid sat. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was nothing, but by nightfall I knew better. My niece texted me a link to a TikTok, a shaky video of me sliding a plate in front of the boy. The audio was sarcastic, the caption worse. "Waitress serves up clout. Who lets their kid be filmed like that?" The comments were brutal. I didn't know I'd been recorded, but apparently the world already had opinions. By the time I got home that night, I was too numb to eat. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in my work shoes, scrolling through comments that made it seem like kindness was a crime. They called me a clout chaser, a wannabe hero, someone using a child for content. I hadn't even known the video was being recorded. That moment had been real, quiet, private, and now twisted into performance. The next day, I walked into my mom's house for dinner like nothing had happened. But it wasn't silence that greeted me. It was a smirk from Shannon. She had her phone in hand, a glass of white wine balanced like a prop. "Looks like your little diner stunt made the rounds," she said. My mom just sighed, like she was already tired of defending me. Or maybe she wasn't tired. Maybe she never tried. "These things never end well, honey. People don't like show off," she said, carving her roast like I was a lesson in humility. I barely tasted my food. I kept hearing the words from that video echo in my head. "Charity angel," said like it was a joke. My dad didn't say a word, just passed the gravy boat like that was all that mattered. Raina, my niece, looked away when I caught her eye. She'd been the one to send me the link, after all. I left the table before dessert. I couldn't fake another smile. Back at home, I stared at my phone. A new message from an account with no profile picture. "You should be ashamed. That kid isn't your project." I didn't even respond. What was the point? I turned off my phone, made myself a mug of tea, and sat in the dark, wondering if I'd done something wrong. All I did was feed a child. That shouldn't be controversial. That shouldn't be a scandal. The next morning, I showed up at Maureen's like usual. My hands shook a little as I poured coffee. Every time the bell over the door rang, I wondered if someone was coming to accuse me of something. At 7:05 a.m., he came in again. Same jacket, same seat, same folded hands in his lap like he was praying. I set the pancakes down gently. He looked up. "Thanks," he whispered. But before I could walk away, I saw her again. Brinley. Same seat at the counter, same phone in her hand. This time I didn't ignore it. I walked over, picked up the checkbook from the counter, and said, "You got what you needed yesterday." She raised her eyebrows, pretending not to understand. I didn't push it, just moved on. But I knew better now. I knew what it meant to be watched like a spectacle. That evening, I didn't go home. I went to the house I grew up in uninvited. I walked in during dinner and took the only empty chair left. Nobody looked surprised. They were already deep into roast chicken and Chardonnay. My mom set her fork down slowly. "We've been talking," she said, as if it was a committee meeting, "and we think maybe you should take a little time away. From the house. From the family. Just until things quiet down." I didn't flinch. I asked, "You want me to leave?" She looked away. Shannon chimed in, voice too sweet. "Not forever, just a PR cleanse. The internet forgets fast." I stood up. Didn't even grab my coat. I walked out, my heart pounding like I'd run a mile. And at 9:41 p.m., I found a trash bag on the front porch. My stuff, dumped like yesterday's takeout. No explanation, no note. I picked it up and walked to the only place that still felt like mine. The diner. I had keys. Darlene trusted me. I let myself in, turned on one back light and sat in the booth where he always sat. I sipped a cup of old coffee, curled my legs up, and stared out the window at the quiet street. My life had just been vacuumed out of my family's house like dust. All because I fed a boy who reminded me of me. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. I showered in the back and pulled on my uniform like armor. After wiping down the counters and refilling the napkin holders, I tucked the trash bag, my so-called luggage, under the sink. At 10:03 a.m., I walked into Halston Community Bank. The teller smiled until she read the screen. Then her expression dimmed. "I'm sorry," she said. "You've been removed as an authorized user." I blinked. "But I helped open this account." She apologized again and handed me a printed notice. My name scratched off like it never belonged there. Next stop was the pharmacy. I needed to refill my thyroid meds. The clerk clicked a few keys and frowned. Sorry, you're no longer listed on this plan." I walked out without saying a word. My next call was to Mr. Lauder, my dad's old estate lawyer. He sounded surprised. "Odellin, I thought you knew. You're not listed anymore. Your sister made some amendments last quarter. Everything passed through the proper channels." They hadn't just kicked me out. They erased me. Slowly, deliberately, with the kind of precision only family can manage. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I pulled out an old shoebox from under the back shelf at the diner. Inside were old receipts, birthday cards, even a thank you note from a customer who'd passed away. I added the lawyer's letter to the pile and wrote on the lid in Sharpie, "Proof." Then came Shannon's text, "Let's meet, just us, lawyer's office, neutral ground." I went, even though I knew it wasn't neutral. I walked into the cold office with a notebook pressed to my chest. Vera sat with her arms folded, legs crossed like she was posing for a lifestyle magazine. Shannon wore pearls and a cardigan I recognized from one of her staged family photos. The lawyer, some guy named Bryant, pushed a folder toward me. "We'd like you to review and sign this," he said, all polite legal cadence. I opened it. Voluntary release of family claims and narrative rights. My name in print, followed by pages of legal suffocation, non-disparagement, gag orders, forfeiture of future claims. They weren't trying to make peace. They were trying to bury me. Quietly, legally, permanently. I closed the folder. "I'll have someone look at it." Shannon tilted her head. "No need to lawyer up, Odeline. It's simple." I stood. "So is theft." Vera didn't move. Didn't blink. Just said, "You've caused enough noise. Let's not make it messier." I looked at them both and replied, "If you want clean, stop sweeping me under the rug." Later that day, back at the diner, I poured myself a coffee, still in the same slacks from that meeting. I was behind the counter when she walked in. Mrs. Kellner, third-grade teacher at Halston Elementary. She was holding a small envelope and looked nervous. "I just wanted to say thank you for what you did for Emery." She nodded. "That's the boy's name. We didn't know if you knew. His father was Master Sergeant Jason Carter, stationed at Fort Braddock. He went MIA last fall, and recently, it was confirmed he won't be coming back." I sat down hard on the nearest stool. "There's no next of kin listed. No one claimed him. Except you. You're the only person who's looked after him consistently." She placed the envelope gently on the counter. "Just thought you should know." After she left, I took the envelope marked "Proof" and placed the legal release forms inside. Then I took a second envelope and wrote "Truth" across the front. I filled it with receipts, notes, emails, evidence of who I was before they erased me. If they wanted silence, I'd give them truth instead. I didn't post anything right away. I watched, listened, waited. Then one Sunday morning, I uploaded a single video. No music, no effects. Just me in the booth, apron on, voice steady. "Some people are ashamed of kindness," I said. I'm not. I posted it to the Halston Community Facebook board, the one where folks usually complained about potholes or lost pets. By Wednesday, it had over 32,000 shares. People across the country started chiming in. Teachers, nurses, military wives, even an old Navy vet who said my face reminded him of his daughter. The comments weren't viral, but they were honest. "I was that hungry kid once," one read. "You gave him more than breakfast. You gave him proof he wasn't invisible." Then the DMs came. Quiet, steady. Not all of them were kind, but most were. They said I mattered, that I wasn't wrong. And then the stories started. A local mom remembered how Vera once shut down a winter coat drive because it looked desperate. Another claimed Shannon redirected charity funds to her podcast rebrand. I didn't confirm or deny. I didn't have to. The silence of truth began to echo louder than their mockery. That Thursday night, I went to the HOA meeting. It was held in the Halston Rec Center, the same building that had Vera's photo on the community wall. I came in late, coat zipped to my chin, took the last seat in the back row. Vera sat front and center, Shannon beside her, hair curled, lipstick perfect. They didn't see me at first, but then a woman stood, a retired Marine mom with a braid streaked gray. "My son ate free at Maureen's every Wednesday," she said, "because someone there cared." She turned, and now I know who that someone was. Shannon stiffened. Vera started to object. "This is highly inappropriate," but the chair of the meeting raised a hand. "Vera, you've had the floor for a decade. Tonight, other voices get a turn." Then another woman stood. Amory's grandmother. "He asked me to thank the lady in the apron," she said. "He told me she saved his life." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. By that weekend, the military base near Fort Braddock released a short statement. Master Sergeant Jason Carter had written a final note naming the waitress who protected my son in his final correspondence. He hadn't said my name, but he didn't need to. Monday morning, I brewed coffee at 5:30 like always. At 7:10, Emery didn't show. He hadn't come since social services took him the week before. I called the school. They said a custody change had been filed. I left my number just in case. Days passed. Then, one afternoon, Emery's grandmother walked into the diner carrying a small tin of oatmeal cookies. "He's okay," she said softly. "He's seeing a counselor." "And learning chess," she smiled. "Still folds his napkins the way you taught him." Later that night, I found a note on the counter under the register. No stamp, no envelope, just my name in blocky handwriting. "You made me feel full when I was empty," it said. Don't stop looking at people like that. There was no signature, just a small lopsided pancake sketched at the bottom. That night, I went home to my new apartment, tiny but mine. I pulled out the envelope marked Truth, added the note, then slid it into a file labeled For Me. That's when I saw the old note from my dad, tucked inside a folded piece of paper. "Don't let them make you believe quiet means weak." I read it 3 times. Then I taped it to the inside of my cabinet door. Saturday came with a sky full of quiet. No wind, no traffic. Just the kind of stillness that presses against your thoughts. I opened Maureen's at 5:40 a.m. Same as always. The coffee brewed, the griddle hissed. At 7:15 I placed a plate of pancakes at Emery's booth out of habit. It stayed there untouched. By 9 o'clock I was outside, leaning against the brick wall of the diner. That's when I heard them. 4 black SUVs rolling through Halston's sleepy streets like they didn't belong here. Military plates. Neighbors peeked out from curtains. A jogger slowed to a walk. When the cars stopped outside my mother's house, I crossed the street and stood by Mrs. Duval's hydrangeas. Colonel Reeves stepped out first. Dress blues crisp, expression unreadable. 2 other officers flanked him. They walked straight to the door. Vera opened it, her face caught somewhere between confusion and pride. Shannon stood behind her in silk pajamas, arms crossed like a shield. The colonel didn't wait for permission. "We are here to recognize an unacknowledged act of civilian care," he said, and pulled out a polished plaque. I didn't move. I didn't wave, but the crowd turned toward me. One officer stepped across the lawn and handed me the plaque, "For Miss Odalyn Parker, for unwavering service to those who serve." Behind him, the second officer presented a folded flag, and then, like a whisper, I heard, "That's her!" I turned. Emery was standing with his grandmother at the sidewalk. He looked stronger somehow. He smiled. I crouched. "Kept your table warm," I said. He didn't speak, just threw his arms around me, tight, long, the kind of hug you give someone who reminded you that you're not alone in the world. Applause started slowly, one neighbor, then another. It wasn't loud, but it was honest. Shannon's smile vanished. Vera didn't speak. Her eyes locked on the plaque like it offended her. I stepped forward, handed her an envelope. "You wanted silence?" I said. "This is what it looks like when it's earned." I didn't wait for her to open it. I turned and walked back to Maureen's, the plaque under one arm and the flag folded tight. By Tuesday, word had spread. The diner booth had a new brass plaque, reserved for quiet kindness. People left military patches, folded napkins, little thank you notes. No ceremony, no big speeches, just a growing wall of gratitude. Vera showed up once, hours after the lunch rush. No makeup, just her eyes, tired, bare, older than I remembered. She slid an envelope across the counter. I didn't know you had that kind of strength, she said. I didn't open the envelope. I didn't reach for it either. I looked at her and said, "You always thought silence meant weakness. I know better now." She turned and walked out. That night I sat at my writing desk in the tiny apartment. I taped a photo of the diner's booth above my desk. Me, Emery, Colonel Reeves, framed by the soft glow of Maureen's neon sign. Under it was a note Emery once wrote. "You saved more than my mornings." I ran my fingers over the paper, not for comfort, but to remind myself of what I stood for, even when no one else did. Some people leave behind legacies of wealth, others build empires. I just want to leave behind a booth where no one goes hungry, not even for dignity. So, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know down in the comments. I'm curious. Was I wrong for feeding that boy, or was kindness always the story that needed telling?